What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Track the Harmonic. I'm your host, Lord MC. Today we'll be diving into the world of harmonic technical analysis and dissect what's happening in the stock market. In this video, I'll be sharing with you what to expect for the upcoming week in the market. But first, I want to mention for those of you who are interested in joining the Discord or are in defense of joining, I'm currently offering a 5-day free trial to my Harmonic Technical Analysis Discord. Whether you're new to harmonic trading or an experienced trader looking to refine your skills, the Discord is a perfect place to connect with other like-minded individuals who share the interest in the harmonic approach. You'll have access to exclusive resources and a supportive community, so if you're ready to take your trading to the next level, don't miss out on this opportunity to join my Harmonic Technical Analysis Discord community free for 5 days. Link to the Discord will be in the description box below. Having said that, let's get started. So, as all of you know, the stock market is a complex system that is influenced by various factors. We've got a lot of data coming out, including updates on the inflation rate and consumer price index, better known as CPI, which is a critical indicator of economic health. So we have a lot of data coming out that could potentially affect the market's performance. Really quick, for those of you who don't know what inflation is, inflation just basically measures the increase in prices of goods and services over time. A high inflation rate can mean that the prices of goods and services are increasing, which can have a negative impact on the economy. On the other hand, a low inflation rate can indicate slow economic growth. So the other data we have releasing this week is the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, which just tracks the prices of baskets of goods and services typically consumed by households. So CPI is an essential measure of inflation. It can help us understand the overall health of the economy. So the Federal Reserve, as you guys know, keeps a very close eye on inflation and CPI data, as it can impact their monetary policy decisions. So if inflation is high, the Federal Reserve may raise interest rates to cool down the economy. On the other hand, if inflation is low, the Fed may lower interest rates to stimulate economic growth. So it's worth noting that the Fed uses both inflation and CPI to make decisions about monetary policy. They have a target inflation, as we all know, rate of 2%. So, and if inflation rates exceed that target, they may raise interest rates to combat that. So, as we head into the next week, keep an eye on those critical economic indicators. They can have a significant impact on the stock market. So, having said that, without further ado, let's dive into the charts. So, SPY here on the daily. We had on Friday a very interesting close. It went as high as 413.72. The low was 408.64 before closing the day at 412.63. So what can we expect here harmonically? You can tell here you double bottomed here at the 50 EMA, and it's looking to push here to test that 414.02 level at XA of this bearish harmonic pattern. So what can we expect here? It looks like the HSI here wants to come and test that midline, which could potentially bring it above 414.02. I'm going to bring my drawings here and my lines. I know there's a lot going on here, but bear with me. So if the market is going to continue pushing upwards next week, you could test 414.02 and then potentially fill this gap or enter the gap, which has been having a hard time getting above. So if we have good economic data and the market continues to push, the next level of resistance would be this yellow trend line here that I have here, which is the 2009 lows here, which has also been a strong level of resistance in the past. It'd be interesting to see if it does break up above this. You can potentially fill this gap at 422 and change, and then potentially hit hop at 423.62. Should you get rejected off with 414.02, you can come back down potentially to test 411, which is a key level for me that I've known that SPY, also harmonic level, 411 has been a very tricky level. It's been used as resistance and support. So if it does come down, I would look at 411 to see what it does there. Losing 411, you could come and test 408 and potentially fill this gap. And then 408, the next level of support I have would be that 404 target, which in my opinion is a very, very crucial level to hold if the market wants to continue pushing. Otherwise, losing 404, you come back down, do that type 1 reaction to target 1 at 401.93, and losing that, obviously, you come back to test 396, fill that gap, and then target 2 at 393.81. So it's definitely going to be important to see here harmonically what it's going to do coming into a very important week with economic data. As far as volume here, volume did come here just on average Friday. So the push here was warranted here for what when it gapped up here from Thursday to Friday. So moving on forward here, if we're looking on to the weekly chart here, I know a lot of people are focusing on the weekly chart here as a potential hanging man or a what looks to me a tweezer bottom, right? So we have a tweezer bottom here. For those of you guys who don't know, a tweezer bottom is essentially when you have two identical lows. This could be a potential bullish indicator, but it is usually found on a downtrend, and you are getting here a tweezer bottom on an uptrend. So what can this mean? Two things it could mean. It could potentially continue pushing on forward and upwards, or you have a consolidation period about to take place to see where that is gonna go, right? So I do think, in my opinion, for this week, you might consolidate into that CPI and the inflation rate, as well as we have jobless claims as well. So in my opinion, I think you might consolidate and then figure out whether the market is, depending on the data, right? Or the data could be a nothing burger as well. And this could potentially just indicate a consolidation period is about to take place. But by definition, a tweezer bottom is a bullish reversal. Obviously, this is not going to be a reversal here because you're in an uptrend, but it could continue into next week, right? You have this harmonic level here off of this bullish deep crab up to target 2 at 433, where you have been closing above 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks now above target 1 at 404. So what is HSI telling us here? You're looking like you are coming back down to bounce here. Still too early to tell. This is obviously on the weekly. You did have some bullish indicator here for the EMAs. You did finally cross over the 2050 crossover. So you could continue pushing on forward if that is to play out to the upside with the good economic data. Otherwise, like I said, I mentioned those targets here. Harmonically on the weekly, you can come back down, or for rejection off of this levels here, you can come back to 404. So keep an eye out on that. So jumping over to the triple Qs here. So the triple Qs here closed on Friday as high as 323.76, the low being 316.21, and closing the day at 322.89. So the Nasdaq was very bullish on Friday. You also looks like you did a double bottom here off the 21 EMA, and you closed above 318.72, which has been a key level for the triple Qs. So what can we expect moving forward? You have the HSI here about to cross or test that midline. In my opinion, if you can cross above that midline, you could potentially test hop at 330.99. The volume still average here, so you're still climbing on upwards. In my opinion, it looks as far as compared to SPY, the triple Qs has been a leading indicator to look at for what the market potentially could be showing us, right? So if this continues above 330.99, you have the next level here. If I bring this, bear with me here. Hide those O lines. I guess that won't come up. But anyways, if you continue here pushing above 330.99, you could test, what would this be? The August highs here, 52 weeks highs would be at 334.42. Otherwise, if you get rejected here off of hop, you're going to come back down and maybe retest. Maybe you have a cooling period into next week here where you will test potentially again 318.72, and then you could come back down to test XA at 313.84. So having said that, if you lose a 21 EMA here, which you have lost back here in April, you could come back down to test that 50 EMA at 311, come back down to BC at 305.69, test the 200 EMA at 302, and then come back down to finish that type 1 reaction here at target 1 at 291.95. So right now, for me, in my opinion, the triple Qs looks very strong. If we go over to the weekly here, the weekly, you kind of are potentially, this looks like almost a hammer candle here, and on an uptrend, as we know, this could potentially mean that it could reverse spear back down to the downside here. So on the weekly close, you did test a 90 EMA, had a strong push down, but bulls were able to step up back above that 318.72. So like the SPY, also the triple Qs has had a 2050 crossover, so we will see if that is to continue coming into next week. Jumping over to the Dow Jones here. So the Dow Jones had on Friday high at 337.50, the low being 333.94, and the close was at 336.73. So what can we expect here? On Thursday, you test a 200 EMA, which was a key level there. It held onto it, and now you're looking at you're getting some volume here, picking up again, and you close back above the 9 EMA. So the next target I would have here harmonically would be XA here at 340.27, and then if you can get above these two levels here at 343 and 345, you could test 347.56. As far as the Dow Jones here with this bearish harmonic pattern, you did finish that type 1 reaction right here at target 1 at 330. So the HSI is still not showing us if it's going to continue. Maybe you test that midline, which would probably take it to that 340.27. Otherwise, if it finds it gets rejected up there, you come back to test 336, and there is a mini gap here at 333, and then potentially come back down for that type 1 reaction to test 330.96, where the 200 EMA is. Losing that, obviously, you come back down to test target 2 at 324.86. So how does the Dow Jones look on the weekly here? On the weekly, you did have a red close. Still potentially almost you had that also tweezer bottom. Obviously failed that tweezer bottom here because it did wick below to test the 50 EMA. So this could also be considered a hammer candle potentially, and you could flip to potentially to the downside, right? You also looks like you have a potential double top here, where you can come back down, test that midline here at where the 50 SMA is at 326. Breaking that, you come back down and fill those gaps like I said below. And still too early to tell what this is going to do, so we'll definitely have to keep an eye on the economic data for that. Jumping over to Apple here. So Apple, bullish earnings, beat expectations. So you had an increase in volume on Thursday and on Friday, which you went as high as 174.30, the low being 170.76 before closing the day at 173.57. In my opinion, Apple right now is on fire right now. He's continuing to bring volume here. The RSI is about to be overbought. So what can we expect here? You could fill this gap here, potentially maybe test at 175. There's a lot of open interest going on in the option chain with Apple. So this is really insane that Apple is pushing up the way it is right now, but it is very bullish right now. In my opinion, you did create, if you follow this channel here, you had higher highs and higher lows where you did test the 21 EMA a couple times, and you bear trapped once here, twice here, and then the third time here. So the 21 EMA has been a key level for Apple here to hold on to, where it has found support here and continue pushing on up. So what can we expect here harmonically? You're a little bit overextended. The HSI still looks like it wants to push up. So if we take a fib retracement tool to see what our next target would be, in my opinion, it's going to be that one point A here at 176.15. So just to see what happens after that. The next level, right, it would be filling that gap, testing the 100% retracement off of this bullish bat pattern at point A here at 176.15. After that, it wouldn't be too crazy to say that you could test all-time highs again, which would be at 182.94, and then off of this harmonic pattern here, the 127% retracement here of this pattern would create a new all-time high at 188.73. So things are getting very interesting for Apple here. Crazy with the way the economy is right now to see that Apple is at these levels, but the market dictates the price, and it's right now, in my opinion, bullish on Apple. So let's jump over to the weekly here to see how it closed on the weekly. Remove some drawings here. So continuation for Apple here. You had an increase of volume past week here. So this to me still looks like it wants to potentially continue pushing upwards. So harmonically, you do also have a bat pattern here on the weekly. So harmonically on the weekly, what's the next level would be 176.24. Obviously the 100% retracement of the pattern at 182, and then this is calling crazy levels at 198, but we'll see if it gets there. Otherwise, if we come back down to the daily here, the next level of support, remove my drawings here, if you come back down, you could test the 90 EMA at 168, which has been a key level for Apple. It's finally closed above it here for a couple days. Actually looking back, sorry, just it gapped up on Thursday to Friday, but if it gets rejected into Monday here, maybe a gap fills, you can come back down to 170, potentially fill that gap at 160, I believe at 167.04, and then potentially test that 166.25 level to see if that still holds a strong level of support. You definitely have now the 21 EMA at that 166.25. Should you come back down and finally lose the 21 EMA, things can get very spicy to the downside for Apple here. To test the 50 SMA here and the EMA at 160, come back down to target to at 158, and then you have a lot of levels of support here for Apple at 155, 156, 153, on and so forth, up to target 1 here at 147.56. So right now it looks still strong for Apple, but watch for 166.25 where the 21 EMA is. If it falls below that, things can get very interesting to the downside. Crossovers for the weekly, you did have the 2050 crossover playing out here, so right now things look very interesting here for Apple to continue to the upside. So that's all I have to say for Apple. We're going to jump to Microsoft here. So Microsoft on Friday had a very interesting day here. Went as high as 311.97, the low being 304.27 before closing the day at 310.65. You did consolidate here above XA here at 304.26, and you finally broke out of here to test, potentially start testing here, hop at 330.41. You are a bit overbought almost on the RSI. The HSI looks like it wants to come up and test that overbought zone, which would, in my opinion, could come and test hop here at 330, right? The AMP RSI is almost approaching those critical levels of overbought zone, so we will definitely have to keep an eye out on that. Otherwise, if you don't continue pushing upwards, you could come back down, test XA here at 304.26, and come back down to test BC here at 292.71, fill this gap, and then do a type 1 reaction all the way to 272.45. So how do we look on Friday here with volume? You had volume increase, obviously. So let's jump to the weekly to see how the weekly closed. So the weekly did have a decrease in volume. So maybe right here, buyers are getting exhausted here. You could come back down off of this Gartley pattern on the weekly to 297.89. Fill that gap, like I said, and then test XA at 276 and do a type 1 reaction at 256. Still too early to tell on that. The weekly did almost reach that overbought zone, so you could have just a consolidation period, like I said, into next week for Microsoft to see if it continues pushing off good economic data. But on the weekly, it did get a decrease in volume, so we definitely want to watch out for Microsoft here. Jumping over to Tesla here. So Tesla on the day went as high as 170.79, low being 163.51 before closing the day above 170.06. You had this ABCD pattern on the daily here where at the completion of point D, you came and tested these harmonic levels that I have drawn here at 164.67, which has been crucial level for Tesla the past week or two here to get above, right? You got rejected here a couple times, and on Friday, you finally pushed up with increase in volume above that 164, and I wanted my target to get, I wanted Tesla to get a close above my target here at 167.98, which it did on Friday, and you actually entered the gap here where you did test the 21 EMA and got rejected off of that. So what can we expect here, harmonically speaking, for Tesla into next week? If this continues to do that type 1 reaction, you could see it fill that gap exactly where the target one is here at 177.31, and that would also test, that's also where the 50 EMA is, and if you can get above that, you have the other gap here which you never closed. You got a few cents short filling that gap here at 183, and if it continues, you could see target 2 here at 192.71. Otherwise, if you get rejected off the 21 EMA, you could come back down to test that 167.98 level, and then 164.15 if more downside is to happen, and then potentially fill that gap here at where hop is at 147.06. So definitely want to see more volume come in for Tesla here. Tesla, the HSI did break that midline here, and it's now looking like it wants to test that overbought zone, which would, in my opinion, have a good shot at testing that 177 target. Jumping to the weekly here on Tesla. Tesla, how did it close on the weekly? Had a decrease in volume, but off of this, what looks like a reversal here candle, you did come back up. So off of the weekly here, you do have a bullish bat pattern where you are at the completion of point D here. You started to come up here and did a beautiful type 1 reaction almost, but now you're trying to get above BCR here at 176. 46, so a lot of things to happen here. You had that HSI dot generated here, but it's finding support here at above 170. So if this continues, like I said, this is obviously on the weekly. There's a lot of things going on in the option chain with Tesla as well. So on the weekly, this could take some time. You could come back up to potentially test that target 221.26. Still too early to tell. You have a lot of key level of resistances here for Apple to even approach above 200. So jumping over to Amazon here. So Amazon is getting very interesting for Amazon. On Friday, you went as high as 105.76, the low being 103.55 before closing the day at 105.66. So Amazon, as we could tell in the past, has found level of resistance here off the 200 EMA and SMA, right? You got rejected here, and now you got rejected twice here, and then a third time you came back down. Things are getting very interesting for Amazon in my opinion. You are basically bunched up here, squeezing together with all these EMAs lining up here. You could potentially start looking at, if it looks like it's more consolidation here into the economic data that we're going to get next week. But if it's to break out to the upside and break finally the 200 EMA here at 106 and change, you could test XA at 107.54 again. We would like it to close a few days above that level for potentially coming back here to fill this gap at 114 and change, and then finally hitting that 121.09 level here. So you did get a decrease in volume on this push down here, and now you're starting to potentially pick up on the volume. The HSI is curling up to test that midline, so if it does cross above that, you have a good shot at 107, but this key level here would be the 200 EMA. So watch out for that. If you don't find support here off the 21 EMA, you can come back down, test a 50 EMA here, which has found support, but breaking that here, you come back down to 99 and then potentially hop at 96.31. So a big move, in my opinion, is going to happen in either direction for Amazon as it gets very tight. Even the Bollinger Bands here are tightening up here, so we'll see. You could tell that the 21 is basically just the midline of the Bollinger Bands here. So jumping to the weekly here to see how we close on the weekly for Amazon. It looks here on decrease in volume, right? So you did wick down to that 21 EMA, and you're also sandwiched in also between these EMAs and SMAs here. So what can we expect off of this weekly, off of this bullish bat pattern? You have yet to do a type 1 reaction, but if you break to the upside here, like I said, you have that gap, and then test target 1, complete that type 1 reaction here at 122.39. Otherwise, you fail this 21 EMA, you have XA here at 93.54, and then failing that, you have some capitulation levels again for Amazon. Capitulation level again for me harmonically would be that 81.30 target, where you can come back down, test hop at 66.16. So definitely we'll be keeping an eye on Amazon. If I see volume coming here, would be a nice little play there to get into in either direction. So definitely keep an eye on Amazon. Jumping over to Google. So Google is also very interesting as well. You are potentially consolidating here what looks to be in the channel here. So you also have the golden cross that happened with the SMAs here, and now you're about to potentially cross over on the EMAs, that golden cross. Volume did start to pick up on Friday. Still, in my opinion, still lower volume coming in, but you did finish the day as high as you tested 105.88, the low being 104.11 on Friday, and you closed at 105.57. So for right now, you did come back down and test the 200 EMA, and right now it's looking like it's trying to hold above the 21. So what can we expect here? We can also expect a breakout here for Google soon in either direction. So if it's bullish, the next target I'd be looking at, it would be that 110.73 and then 113.47. The HSI is kind of flatlining right now. It doesn't know, in my opinion, it looks like it is coming back up, but we definitely want to see more volume step up here for Google. Otherwise, if you lose a 21 EMA, you come and test a 200 EMA at 103, come back down to finish that type 1 reaction at 101.30. You could also just come back down, test 101.30, find support here off the 50 SMA, and then continue for that type 2 return back up to hot. So very interesting to see what Google is going to do into next week. On the weekly close here, you had a decrease in volume to the downside, so we'll see if this starts to pick up again. You do have a bullish crab pattern here where target 1 is at 109.39, so you did get rejected a couple times here. So if this breaks up above 109.39, Google could go for a nice little jog here above 120 to target 2 potentially at 125.49. Otherwise, you get rejected here. You can come back down at XA potentially down the line if you lose a 200 EMA at $98 and test XA of this harmonic crab pattern at 83.81, and then again capitulation again down the line would start at 73.28 for Google. Still too early for that, but we will definitely keep an eye out on Google into next week. Another thing I want to jump into here is NVIDIA. So NVIDIA. This thing is also just continued to find support off of the 21 EMA. You did test it last week here on Thursday, where you found support. Again, looks like it's been bear trapping people at the 21 EMA here. So what is the next level you could expect here? Should it continue? Because you did have volume come in. The next level I'd be looking at would be that 292.20. Breaking above 292.20, you could see hot potentially at 315.03. On the HSI, you did find support off that midline, and if it continues to that overbought zone here, all the way up here, there's a good shot here at 315.03. Otherwise, if you get rejected here at 292.20, you can come back down to test 278 to 90 EMA. Maybe test the 21 EMA. For me, in my opinion, if you finally lose the 21 EMA on NVIDIA, you can come back down to 268.79 and potentially start dropping here and testing all these levels here to complete that type 1 reaction, fill that gap at target 1 here at 215.03 should it come to the downside. Otherwise, right now, whoever is prepping this up here, if you had this consolidation period here, you kind of broke out of it right now. You came back inside of it, and now you are continuing to push and test that level here. There's also what looks to me here, what is known as a rising 3 method. This is normally a bullish indicator when you have a pattern formation like this, where you have one candle to the upside and then you have a couple candles here to the downside, a decrease in volume, and then you have a potential move back up with increase in volume. So definitely keep an eye out on that. But right now, the volume is starting to pick up again on NVIDIA. Jumping over to the weekly here, see how we close. Just this is insane here for the weekly for NVIDIA. You did close 1, 2, 3 days above 268.79, so that is holding support here. The weekly is also calling for a hop at 315.03, so same levels almost as the daily, and still green volume. The RSI is a little bit overbought right now, so definitely you might come back down and test levels again, the 9 and the 21 EMA on the daily. So keep an eye out on NVIDIA, because this thing could go and pop off at any minute. So one thing I wanted to add, another stock I wanted to look at here would be JPM. It's important to be looking at the banks now because of what's going on with the regional banks and the banking sector. So JPM here on the daily, you have a bearish shark pattern here, where you are potentially coming back up here to test this OB level at 141.92. It's currently at 136.74. So what can we expect here if this continues? Back right here, right? This is on a downtrend. You almost had that hammer candle here, which could signify potential reversal. So if you can get above the 90 EMA here, you could come and test at 141.07 and then test OB here at 141.92, terminal at 143.37, and then hop at 147.31. Should you get rejected here, you could come back down and test target 1 at 133.24, and then lose the 200 EMA, come down to that target 2 at 125.42. So this is going to be very interesting to see with what's going on with the banking sector, see if there's any type of relief here, because there has been a lot of talking about short sellers and shorting bank stocks right now. So jumping over to the weekly here, the weekly, it still looks a little bit bearish here with the increase in volume obviously this week, because we did have a lot of things that went on. So on the weekly, you do have another bullish. This is a bullish shark pattern, and the next target you'd be looking at if it's a continuation to the upside would be that $150 range here. Otherwise, you come back down to terminal here at 127, 121, and then 114.94. But so yeah, keep an eye out on JPM here, because this could also be what looks like a potential cup and handle, right? So you have the cup here, you came back down to the handle, and then you could potentially start picking up here. So we'll definitely keep an eye on JPM. And last but not least, I'm going to cover the VIX here to see how we're doing in the VIX and fear in the market. So you did come back down here to this week here up to, or was the low here, the new 52-week lows at 1553, and you found support there, where you bounced off of, and you went as high as 2133 on Thursday with the whole banking situation that went on. And then now again you're at below 20 again, you're at 1718 on Friday close. So what we can expect here, if it continues to come to the downside, that means the market will be continuing to push upwards. So you could come and retest 1581, and then 1410 would be the next target. Right now it looks, harmonically speaking, I know this is very hard to chart on the VIX, but harmonically speaking, you are coming back down, potentially what looks like it wants to test that midline. So definitely keep an eye on VIX. As we know, VIX right now is anywhere below 2019. It's considered a bull market, but it doesn't really kind of feel like it. I mean, it is, we are in levels here where it is bullish in the market, but with the whole banking situation, things could, the VIX could spike up back up again to potentially come up here at 22, 25, and then 28 down the line. So having said that, that's all I wanted to share with you guys. I will be streaming on Monday, same time as always. So if you want to follow me there to my Twitch, the link to the Twitch is in the description box below. Other than that, I hope you guys have a good rest of your Sunday. So take care, everybody, and peace.